I'm going live. Just have to wait for somebody to show up now. Someone come talk to me. Someone come talk to me. We'll do a countdown timer. There we go. In 3 minutes, we'll rock and roll. Give a few more people time to get in. Tina and Bill and Julie, hello all. Two minutes, I'll be properly caffeinated. We'll get this thing started. Close enough. We've got the 10 that matter in here. So good enough, good enough, good enough. Good enough. All aboard. There you go. So somebody hit me with a good question. I've not done one of these in months. I'm out of practice. Till someone hits me with a good question, I have one for you guys and gals. Did you see where Yellowstone is using driverless vehicles now to move people around from one place to another in their national park, around the parking lot to the visitor center and such? Apparently, they've spent a lot of money on this little experiment to go driverless. Or Toyota's the best, especially Sienna. Yeah, Sienna is Toyota's minivan. Everybody pretty much, that tends to be the going opinion. And because that is the going opinion, that means you are going to pay much more for a Toyota Sienna than you are an equivalent model from another brand. So, like everything else, it's supply and demand. But in general, none of the Toyotas have had any real problems. And if you click on the video tab there on the channel, you'll see where I've done things on each minivan brand. You'll see where I did the comparison, the top two minivans, and that Sienna was one of them. And I went into some pretty good price comparisons for similar years of what you'll pay for a Toyota versus another brand. So you can decide if that's going to be the right one for you. Domino's is also going driverless in some areas as a test. Yeah, I'm not certain how I feel about driverless stuff. I probably would chance, jumping on a shuttle bus that ran 3 miles an hour. But I've seen iRobot too many times, so jury's still out with me. Could driverless cars be hijacked? Um, yeah, I don't know. Apparently, right now, Yellowstone is actually, they have like a park ranger in there with it, because their biggest problem initially, when they did it, of course, the first couple of days, they did it with all journalists so they could get plenty of press coverage, was that the things would stop and they would have trouble. Someone would have to manually override it to get it to start back, because there's so many things that can make, they're doing these across crowded parking lots. So people are stepping out in front of these things. People are pulling out in front of these things in their car. It's probably not the best test that they could possibly do compared to something, that was more of a wide open parking lot or whatever. But we'll see how it goes in the long term. They're going to be doing this for the next 2 or 3 months, is my understanding. Figure fridges out. Again, Julie, if you go click on that video tab, you'll see several videos that have to do with these 12-volt refrigerators. As far as which is best, and I get into that in some of the videos there in a little more detail, as long as you're sticking with one of the top 4 or 5 brands, you'll be fine with a 12-volt refrigerator. But there's new brands of these things coming out every week, and copycats of copycats of copycats, and it doesn't matter what these companies, because you have these Chinese companies now shipping this stuff straight into Walmart, straight into Amazon. They are completely eliminating the middleman the way it used to work. Used to be somebody like me would buy 10,000 of these and bring them in, and then we would send them to Amazon and different stores, and we would hold some back, and we would be responsible for warranty issues and different things like that. Do the customer service and handle that stuff. Well, that in the last few years, that's the way this entire wholesale industry is going. Now you have these Chinese manufacturers just sending stuff straight into these warehouses, especially to be sold online, but some in retail stores too. So the problem with that is anybody can throw a brand out there, no matter how good or bad the product is. You can offer any kind of warranty you want to on it. And the fact is, if you put out a product that starts failing after 6 months, in China, you just close down and open up the next day under a new name. And all the people that bought your defective product, tough. So that's why I recommend sticking with brands that have been around, at least for a few years and are proven that they're going to hold up well. Hello, Cheryl. Vaughn, I think in time someone will figure out how to hack that driverless system. Yeah. Anything is possible with that stuff. I know I keep up with a lot of technology. I've dealt with a lot of technology over the years, but I don't know a lot about that technology, and I really just don't have a lot of interest in it. I just don't. So I plan on driving myself around for the foreseeable future. Yeah, back to talking about the different minivan brands, and Bill's got a point. That was one of the things in some of those videos. If you go watch them on my minivan comparisons and such, sometimes it's a rather large premium between, if you're looking at a 2010 Dodge compared to a 2010 Honda compared to a 2010 Toyota. It can be $3,000, $4,000, $6,000 sometimes difference. So It's, do you have enough faith that it's $6,000 better compared to, you know, maybe a little more maintenance issues you would have going with another brand? So is anyone in these high heat areas still dealing with the extreme heat right now? In my part of Kentucky, Tennessee, Virginia, it's pretty normal here. It's 85 to 90 degrees every day, where the Northeast is getting hammered and parts of the South is hammered, and the West is definitely being hammered by these high temperatures. I think there can be a lemon Sienna too. Yeah, there can be a lemon anything when it comes to vehicles. But overall, the Siennas, once you move out of that first generation of them, they've been pretty solid. Whereas, like a Honda Odyssey, there's some that you want to stay away from, and then there were 4 or 5 years they were pretty decent, and then they started again for 2 or 3 years. They had transmission problems, and so you have to do a little bit of research, and that's what the van brand videos on the channel hopefully will help some of you guys make a decision that's shopping for this stuff. Live in a town in northwest Arkansas where Walmart is testing a driverless box van. We keep away from it. Yeah, I had some Arkansas wind throw some shopping carts into the side of my big van a few months ago. Good old spring winds. Pulling up the carpet, checking the floorboards for rust. Yeah, that's never hurts to do that if you're looking for, especially if you're looking at a vehicle to buy. I've done some stuff before. That gives me an idea. I need to do a real update video of what I do, what I look for when I'm buying a vehicle and how I do it. But there's some of these up that will go over it. And I can tell you the first thing I do, I don't waste time. I would rather be buying from a private party because I'm going to get a much better deal because I'm buying a little bit older used stuff. You know, all dealers are doing is washing the vehicles, slapping in a new set of really crappy, poor quality tires on a vehicle. They might do an oil change. They can all try to convince you they're doing this 121 point inspection, but it just really doesn't mean a lot. You're just not getting much for your money extra by buying it from a dealer. You know, if it's peace of mind you're looking for, it's kind of false peace of mind. You can do much better yourself. Arizona, it's a dry heat. And I'm sure it really is right now. Moving from one vehicle to another for ground clearance. Yeah. Hey there, Marcelo. By the way, if you're new to chat and you haven't done this before and you want to just kind of hang out and listen to me and watch the comments, that's fine. But I don't know you're in chat unless you put something in the comment. That's the only way I can see I will see a name of who's here. So if you want to hang back and be private, that's fine. If you want me to know, you need to put something over in the chat box. Pleasant here in Missouri the last few days, going up to back to the upper 90s by Monday. Yeah. And the West, man, the West is just getting hammered. Parts of the Northwest, especially, like they've never seen before. So, hello, Daryl. Yeah, it's It's just going to be a weird summer, and it does this sometimes. And sometimes you have a rainy month and then 2 months of drought, and sometimes you have 2 months of drought and then it rains. So you just don't know what's going to happen from place to place and year to year. You just kind of have to roll with it. But I did that video on how to survive those high heat days that hopefully some of you found useful, got a tip or two out of. I'm from Florida. How's your weather in Florida right now? Weather manipulation. Yeah. Pull this down a bit. Yeah. We all like conspiracy theories, don't we? But I think we give those people overseas too much credit sometimes for a lot of things that they really don't have a hand in. Here's a question I'd like from you all in different parts of the country, if you want to put what state you're in or whatever. How are car lots in your area? Because they are dry in mine. I was in Northeast Tennessee yesterday, in some of the bigger cities where, there's 6 or 7 new car lots in a row. And I mean, there are dealerships literally sitting there that have 10 vehicles on their lot. They don't have anything to sell in this area. And that's part of what's throwing the prices on used vehicles, of course, up in the air too right now for anybody shopping for a van right now. It's a little bit nuts, but it will come back to normal in a few months. The Adventures of Ellen and Teresa. I assume you guys have a channel. I know Tina in here has a channel. So if you do a search on YouTube, put Tina's Outsider, you'll come to her channel. You want to check some of these other people out. Oh, Marcelo's made it up to Vegas. 102 in Vegas. Yeah. I've been in Vegas several times in my life, but never in the dead of summer. Never in June or July. I have hit the rainy season there. That's a joy. Because those people lose their minds when it rains. Purchased a Chevy Express 1500. Kind of wish you'd gone with a minivan. Yeah, gas is outrageous. If you think you might want a different van, this is a good time to try to sell yours. I mean, it doesn't hurt to put a for sale sign on it and throw a listing up on Facebook or something, because you never know. There's people paying some big money right now. The ones that have the itch and can't wait, because these vehicle prices are so out of whack right now. How long would you guess a 97 Road Trek 190? I have a 93 model Road Trek. That's my big white van. When the current mileage is 88,000, mine had right around 100,000 when I bought it. It has about 112 or 11 or something on it now after this last trip. They'll do well. Your biggest thing is your biggest fear. My biggest fear when traveling in that big van is losing a transmission, and especially when you're in the West and you hit a lot of elevation changes and extreme elevation changes, because you're pulling a lot of weight with those vehicles. So I know people that have made it to 200,000 miles with their transmission and still on the original transmission. And I know a lot of people have had them fail at the, 120, 130, 140,000 mile mark. So that being said, you also don't know how well they've been maintained. And there's a lot of this garbage that goes around online that, oh man, when you have these older vehicles and, you better not change the transmission fluid, and you better not change the filters, and you better not do this and do that because, your transmission will start to slip. Well, if the only thing that's keeping your transmission from slipping right now are pieces of metal that are already floating around in your transmission fluid, it's going to go pretty soon anyway. So you're already on borrowed time. So with these older vans, that is one of the things I would definitely do when I picked one of these up if I didn't have maintenance records with these full-size vans to know when something was done. I would go ahead and I would have that transmission filters and stuff changed, fluid changed, and do the same thing with the rear end also. Because you're running big, heavy-duty rear ends, and if you look at the charts from the manufacturers, there's stuff that's supposed to be done at 60,000 and stuff that's supposed to be done at 100,000. And on a lot of these older vans, people just don't do these things. So I would go ahead and do those just to be safe. New brakes every year because of changing elevations. Yeah, it's much different if you're somewhere that you're hitting those extreme elevations. And on the same trip out west, I've been virtually at sea level, and 5 days later I was at 9,000 feet. So that's coming from the east where everybody's sitting here at 1,500 feet, 2,000 feet above sea level. I mean, that's some extreme differences to force your van to do, especially when you're moving one of these bigger vans that you're pulling 6,000, 7,000 pounds. Because if you're running it and your tanks are full and, your gray tank and your black tank a little bit and you've got water in there, you're up in that 7,000 pound range easily. Too scared, might not be able to find something decent. Van only has 88,000 miles. Yeah. Well, that's good. Yeah, your mechanics signed off on it. You've already done a bunch of maintenance. You may be better off keeping that one and riding it out, because these prices are going to come back around. As far as what's going to happen with gasoline, none of us know from one day to the next. 1 week to the next, 1 month to the next. All you need is any refinery anywhere that has any glitch, is going to send the prices up for a few weeks. And any of these countries that we have to deal with, anytime there's any problems over there, that's going to always shoot the fuel prices up. So Marcelo, my biggest fear is to be stranded 100 miles from the closest town. And obviously I'm at home base right now, and I just walked out yesterday, and my big white van, my road trek, since we're talking about road treks, 7,000 pounds, I've got a tire sitting flat on the ground, and I pulled out the compressor tire thing I have with me and went to fill it up. And once it hits 8 or 9 pounds, because of the way it came down when it went all the way flat to the ground, apparently it's pulled the bead loose from the rim a little bit, because I can actually feel air coming out through there. And again, this monster van isn't something you're going to crank up with a bumper jack. And it's raining where I am today. It started raining as soon as I started trying to deal with that problem. So we'll see how it's going to go. But, you know, the bigger, heavier vehicles, man, when you're dealing with light truck tires and stuff, they hold more air, they're bigger, they're heavier, there's more lug nuts holding them on. You know, everything with these bigger vans is a little more of a hassle. And like Marcelo was talking about being 100 miles from anywhere, that is one of the things you kind of run into. You know, that in the West, that is a little bit of a fear. So that's why you do want to have tire repair kits and things I've talked about with you, because you may be a long way from help. And this can even happen on the interstate, man. There's even going across Interstate 40, which is right beside Route 66. But when you roll from east to west, when you roll into New Mexico on it, even going across Interstate 40 to the west, there's just nothing, man. You hit some of those areas that are 50, 60 miles between anything. And, you know, coming from the east, people in the east aren't used to that. We're used to something happening. We go 5 miles, 10 miles maybe, you know, to go to a decent sized place and find a garage or a tow truck or whatever we need. It's just not like that out there. And you hit some of those places that are Indian reservation land that you're driving through on different roads, and you know, you may be on that road for 70 or 80 miles and there's very little on it. So if you're having to call for help, it's going to be a while before help gets there, and it's probably going to be expensive. Hey, Kathleen. Almost a 5,000 mile trip on 2-lane roads. That's always nice. Satellite phones are getting cheaper. Yeah. And see, this is one of the things that comes up. I've started to do a video on this and I haven't yet, because I went through this before, long before van life. And one of the things is, well, do you have a towing plan? Yeah, I do, through a company, as a matter of fact. The problem is I don't know whether it's any good or not. And that's the problem, whether it's AAA, whether it's a good Sam's Club thing, whether Allstate has their own plan. You don't have to be an Allstate member. They just have their own plan that they're selling to go and do this stuff and come help you and tow you and whatever. And you never know how it's going to be. You can look up customer reviews from any of these companies, and 50% are happy and 50% are really, really, really unhappy, because when they needed help didn't come. And that happens for a lot of reasons. One depends on the area you happen to break down in. Who is that company that you have your plan? Who are they contracted to? The second thing, like Marcelo was talking about, you may be 50 miles from any decent sized place. If you have a larger vehicle like my road trek, you're not going to bumper pull that thing. They're going to have to send a flatbed for anything that happens. So a lot of times, you know, they're contacting these companies and they send a tow truck and they send the wrong kind of truck, and you're no better off. And then you're having to wait more hours for hopefully someone to come with the right vehicle, or a different company to show up with the right vehicle. So there's a lot of variables with these plans. And, you know, I talked to somebody and they made a comment that they had 3 different plans. And their way of looking at it was, surely wherever I am, I will be able to get one of them to work and come get me and tow me or whatever I have to do. And that sounds funny, somebody having 3 plans, but I don't know if that's really not a bad philosophy for somebody that's on the road full time. Because one of the problems is none of these companies want to pay anything. So when you're stranded out in wherever you are stranded in, and it doesn't have to be the West, it can be in Tennessee. whoever they're contracted to, they're going to call that company and, hey, you've got a dead battery. Hey, you've blown a tire. Hey, it's whatever the problem is that they're supposed to come and help you with. Well, the first problem is they generally take forever to pay the mechanics, their vendors. So these mechanic, tow truck drivers, whatever, really don't like them for that reason. And second of all, they have negotiated rates, so the mechanic's not making as much money. Can everyone hear me all right? Because it just popped a little message up saying that maybe you couldn't. Maybe. Yeah, you can hear me okay? Okay. So here's what I'm getting at, because these companies, whether it's AAA, whatever plan you have, because they pay their mechanics and tow drivers they're contracted with so poorly, what's going to happen is those guys are going to do every other job that they can get their hands on and make more money before they come and get you. You're going to be at the bottom of their list a lot of times. And if they're on the way, they've got to drive 50 miles out to you to make this cut down low rate that they're going to get paid 3 months from now by these companies they're contracted with. Every call they get in the meantime that they can make their full labor rate on, their full towing rate on, they're going to go do those jobs. And this has happened to people that have been out in these situations doing what we do, that they have called their AAA, they have called their Allstate, whoever they're contracted with, who called the garage or tow company they're contracted with, and they break down at 1 p.m. and somebody shows up at 8 o'clock at night at the end of the day. Or worse yet, 7 or 8 o'clock comes at night. This company has kept putting you off all day while they went and did more profitable jobs. And now the dude running the tow truck or whatever has just decided he's made enough money and to heck with you, and he's just going to go home. So he doesn't drive the 50 miles out to take care of you. And now you're stranded and back on the phone with AAA or whoever again, begging for help. And so, like I said, it's a 50-50 chance of whether you're going to have a good experience or a bad experience with this when you need them. And I went through this with a car with AAA years ago, and I was out of state and broke down. And when I needed them, they were pretty much useless. And I dropped AAA at that point. Somebody that had been in another town the same day probably had great service, but the time I needed them, I didn't. The plan I have now is with Allstate. Again, the similar plan that they're selling. I know someone that's had it for years. They've had to use it a couple of times. It came through great for them. But they also, both times they needed it, they were in Tennessee in basically tourist towns where there's lots of people around. So just because they had a great experience doesn't mean I'll have a great experience if I break down in the middle of Arkansas or Oklahoma. It's going to be hit and miss. So as long as you know that up front, having one of those plans is another tool to add to your arsenal, but it's by no means because you paid your $100 or $150 or whatever for that year's membership. By no means is that a guarantee that help is coming. Had to resort to a local farmer with a pickup and a chain. There you go. Dina says, I'm coming through fine. Okay. See Karen Hart in here. Hello, Karen. Try to scroll back through a few of these messages there I've missed. AAA has a limit 4 times a year towing. Yeah, I think they all have. I'm sure every company has something like that written in. So if you're costing them very much money, they're going to drop you. You know, they're in business to make money. And like I said, regardless of the company, I'm certain they have the same thing or something similar written into that agreement. Can't change a tire, not strong enough. Don't know if I'll go on the road listening to this. Yeah. Yeah, and I certainly don't want to scare you away because, you know, all the traveling I've done, I've been lucky. I've not had major issues. So every time something has happened to me, it has been after I have come back from a long trip and gotten back to home base here in my town, and that's when whatever it is seems to really break or tear up or whatever that causes me a major problem. Good thing about being a lady is you're more likely to have a guy stop and help you. When you're a guy, they ain't a lot of guys going to stop and help you. That just kind of is the way it is. Yeah, listen to Kathleen there. She's giving good advice. So, well, who else has a question? Somebody hit me with something good. Hit me with something I've never been asked before. Law enforcement will. Yeah. Where's the goat? Yeah, that's a good question. There's the goat's been slightly delayed, but there's a reason for the goat. I'm not the little goat things I had hidden in videos. Some of you noticed there's something coming soon in the next month or two. So maybe within the next 60 days, it will be revealed. Yeah, Kathleen always gives good advice. Have you seen many snakes where I've been? I've never run into a snake anywhere I have been, amazingly enough. I've been in the van and driven past one like on a back road, but I've never had to deal with a snake on the road. As far as being at my campsite or when I've been out hiking or anywhere, and I've been in, you know, the Midwest all over where there's, you know, beware of rattlesnake signs everywhere on the walking trails and stuff, but I've just never run into one. How many states have I visited? I've never added it up, but 25 to 30, maybe 30 now that I've spent some adequate time in. I have oddly, yeah, so people that know me, we make jokes because I have basically circled Colorado. And while I've been in Colorado for a couple miles here and there, I don't count it unless I spend a few nights and I'm really doing something there. So on my own little internal map, Colorado's not colored in. And there's a lot of the Pacific Northwest I need to get into and the extreme Northeast I need to get into. Virtually everything across the bottom half of the United States I've been to. All right, a couple questions there. Favorite song? I have to come back to that one in a minute. I've got to think. What was the favorite van trip I made? This last one was pretty good. I spent a lot of it in Oklahoma, did some more of 66 I hadn't done from Oklahoma City where it veers up and you hit that little part of 66. It goes for about 12 miles through Kansas and into Missouri. So that may be I enjoyed that because I went at a much slower pace. And that has happened on every major trip I've done. Every trip, my pace slows down some. I don't rush through anything anymore. If I hit some little town and get a good vibe, I'll stay for a day. And now sometimes I'll stay for 2 or 3 days. And I'll really check that town out and meet some of the locals and just hang out and enjoy it. Lenny, do I do many meetups? No, I had a lot of that planned for last year, and we all know what happened. This last trip I did meet a viewer in Oklahoma, and he won't be in the video, but there's an upcoming video I have of a place I went to that was recommended by him, luckily, because I would have skipped it otherwise, and skipping it would have been a mistake. So, like anything with traveling, the locals will tell you what to do and what not to do and point you to things that you probably wouldn't otherwise do. But I've enjoyed every one of the trips I've done just in different ways. So it's kind of hard to pick one. The first trip out west, because it was my first time driving out west, was exciting. But yeah, it's just hard to pick. They've all been enjoyable, just in different ways. Who's your favorite NFL team? I'm a lifelong Buffalo Bills fan. Although you will see me in other jerseys, like this happens to be a older 49ers jersey. Do I have a Packers jersey? I have a bunch of different jerseys, but I don't think I have a Packers jersey yet. And I like green, so I really need to pick one up. Yeah, small town cafes, great place to meet people. Libraries, because the people that work at libraries are locals. And I've had some great things I've been pointed to, or they have even talked me into staying in a town for a couple of days that I would have buzzed on through because they were having their town festival that weekend or something that I didn't know about, that usually turns out to be really enjoyable. So talking to people definitely helps. So as far as the meetups, I would like to start back trying to do that in the fall, and do that in a way to where I can announce kind of where I'm going to be, even if it's meeting at a restaurant or a city park or whatever, as I'm going through different areas, and then possibly even, being able to camp with some people or maybe travel with some people for a day or two. So we'll see how that ends up going, but I definitely would like to do that. Music, before I forget the music question, I'm a classic rock 80s guy. I have no use for rap music. Anybody that loves rap music, more power to you. I don't. I like some country. I like a little bit of even jazz stuff every once in a while. It just depends. I'm everywhere from Metallica to, like I said, some weird jazz thing. It just depends on what mood I happen to be in at the time. Old TV theme songs. I think the theme song to like the Rockford Files is awesome. The entire thing, which actually had a couple members of the Eagles doing the guitar work in it. So, ever make it to the Atlanta area? I have not. Georgia, I've done some of the northern part of Georgia. I really want to do a lot of Georgia. The only time I was ever in Atlanta, we were checking into a hotel and they were carrying a dead body out of the hotel next to us. So, but that can happen in any city. Stopping at visitor centers is good. Julie asked, how do I find the best route? Not major highways, the scenic routes. Yeah. And again, I start off with a very loose ideal when I start any one of these trips. And it's basically me picking a direction. And I kind of have in mind what I'm going to do the first few days and where I think I'm going to stay the first couple of nights. And there may be something big on the trip that I want to do that may be a couple of weeks into the trip. So I'm kind of moseying in that general direction. But otherwise, I do a whole lot of winging it. I'm just not stressing out over this stuff anymore. And to give you an example, this last trip, I spent a lot of time in Oklahoma. I enjoyed where I was at the beginning of the trip, so I spent much more time there. Probably the longest I'd spent, like 10, 11 days in one place. I came up, I hit Route 66 through northern Oklahoma. I found a couple of towns I liked that I spent 2 or 3 days in each town. Got up into Kansas. One of those towns on 66 was cool there, and I stayed a couple of days. And when I got into Missouri, the bottom part of Missouri, I had to start moseying home because I had run out of the time that I had. My original plan in my head when I started this trip was I was going to do all of Route 66 all the way through Missouri, and then I was going to come home. So, when I started out doing this, I probably would have rushed to get that done, but I'm just not rushing anymore. It's more about the enjoyment than seeing how many things or how many miles I can check off of the list now. So while it would have been nice to have done all of 66 up through Missouri, I have no problem at all and no regrets with the fact that I didn't get to that on this last trip, even though that was part of the original plan. Favorite spot in Alabama? I like Birmingham, and I generally don't like cities very much, but Birmingham there's some decent stuff in that area. They have a great botanical garden there that's free, that you can just walk around in forever. I think it's over next to the zoo. I haven't done the zoo, but Birmingham's a nice place to stay out in. I've been all the way down to the coast, going across the bottom of Alabama, so I really like that area a lot. So, but there's still a lot of Alabama that I would like to see that I haven't gotten to do yet. Jazzy, favorite hole in the wall restaurant you've discovered? When I was doing the Buford Pusser video, of which there's a few more parts to that I still don't have up yet, part of that I went to the courthouse and this guy stops me in the hall just to make sure I'm not lost, and we strike up a conversation. And I mentioned, hey, where do you go to have lunch? Where do the locals go? And he points me to this place around the corner that looks like a shack, and it's about the size of somebody's living room with about 6 bar stools, and It's been there forever. I would not have stopped at this place if I had just caught it when I was driving up the side street and seen it and even realized it was a little dive restaurant. I wouldn't have done it. I wouldn't have stopped there. But the people there were working there were great. The people in there, when I was in there, were a lot of fun. The food was good. It was interesting. As a matter of fact, I was in the area and I went back there several more times. I had breakfast there like the next few days just because I had so much fun there the first time I stopped. And again, without a recommendation from a local, that never would have happened. So always talk to locals when you have a chance. And in convenience stores and fast food restaurants, the locals working there tend to not be that helpful. You tend to get the answer of, what is there to do in this town? I always ask people, what is this town famous for? And they're like, nothing. What is there to do here? Nothing. But if you get into some other places, be it courthouses, museums, libraries, where you get a little bit older people that work there that have been there for a while, they can point you to some really great stuff. What's your thoughts on Minnesota? Getting ready to relocate there. Well, Jennifer, I wish you well. And there's a lot of things I can help with, but telling you about Minnesota is not one of them. I have not set foot into Minnesota as of yet. That was part of 2020's trip plan, which got changed around quite a bit. So I didn't make it into Minnesota and Wisconsin as I had planned last year. So maybe somebody else on here can help her out there with that information. Cheryl, 2 states I don't like driving through is Texas and Georgia. Texas has some weird roads. I don't know what you would have against Georgia. So, Cheryl, I don't know why you want to comment there. I don't know why you get a bad vibe in Georgia. But Kansas has always had a reputation for stupid road stops and little towns that pop people and different things. And I've always heard over the years that Kansas is the worst. And the one time I got pulled over for something completely stupid, which was an excuse to pull me over just because I was out of the area and the guy wanted to check me out, was in Kansas. So I'll leave it at that. Oh, I always make sure I'm doing the speed limit in Kansas. Catch up on a little bit of this chat here. Laughing at Jazzy's Texas story. Yeah, somebody they're posting, and this is a good thing too, man. When you're traveling through areas that you're not used to, fill up. I fill up every day. That is about the first thing I do. I go ahead and fill up on gas. And I tend to not want to drive a lot anymore. There's occasional day, but I don't want to do over 150, 200 miles. And I really don't want to do that much, but I do sometimes. But I will still top off every day because I just don't want to run into those situations which you can run into where that you can make it to the gas station because you've misjudged and you're running low on fuel. So I always top off every day. And that also gives me a nice little record also generally of, where I spent the night before, whatever town I was in. Miles and miles and miles and miles. All right. So yeah. So just get yourself in that habit when you're traveling on these kind of trips. Just go ahead and top off every morning. It only takes a couple of minutes, and that way you just don't have to worry about it. And we were talking about the road trek before. If your road trek has a generator, or any RV, anything that has a generator from the factory, that generator will use the fuel out of your fuel tank. They are gasoline generators. And what happens to keep you from stranding yourself out in the middle of nowhere is those generators won't run when you get below a quarter of a tank of gas. So even though you're in a big vehicle and a quarter of a tank of gas means you may still have 7 to 10 gallons left because those gas tanks are so big, still yet your generator won't run. So when you're, as a safety feature, so you have to plan that out also if you have that type of vehicle to figure out where you're at and where you're going to be and make sure you're not dropping to that fuel level if you plan on using the generator that night. Love driving. Always have. So you guys and gals want to try to keep this going for a few more minutes? You have a few more questions? If you do, hit me with it. Any question on van life? Any question on different places to travel around the USA? I'm still thinking about my favorite song question. I just have so many things that I like for different reasons. I don't know that I could name off a list of 50 probably. Tire care. There's Jay. Hi, Jay. Tire care to get the most life out of your tires. Follow the recommendations on your vehicle, not on the tire, because your vehicle, the manufacturer of your vehicle knows what they wanted on there for the pressure that you're supposed to run. So let that be your recommendation, not just the standard, oh, it's a car, I'm going to put 32 pounds of air in it, because that's what my last 10 vehicles have used. And the same thing with minivans and stuff. And then your larger vans, you can get up to to where you're putting a whole lot more air in. My big white van, compared to a minivan or a car that's running 32 PSI, my big white van, because it has light truck tires, 10-ply tires on it, and the weight it pulls, those things, my particular year, and this is different for different years of those vans, my particular year is running 80 pounds of pressure on the back and 60 in the front. So always go by the manufacturer's recommendations. And the second thing, if you're going to be doing a lot of cross-country traveling or you're shopping for a vehicle, is look at that little oval code on the tires on your vehicle and make sure your tires aren't too old. And you will find a 4-digit code on there. The first 2 digits will be the week of the year, a number, and the last 2 digits will be the year. So if you look at that date code and it says something like 3112, that means that tire was made the 31st week of 2012. And generally, if you have a heavier vehicle especially, you're going to be changing these tires every 5 to 7 years. So these tires, the tread can look brand new, but tires don't last forever. And you don't want to be taking a chance on a blowout when you're in a larger, heavier van. So look at those date codes on the tires and see how old your tires are. And don't forget to check the spare. Because when I bought my big white van, the tires on my van were, 2 of them were good. 2 of them one of them I needed to replace. So I went ahead and replaced the rear set. But I went and looked at the spare, and the spare was like 17 years old. It had never been used, but it was unbelievably old. So, do an all-night live stream. I don't know about that. But we can keep this going for a while. I appreciate that, though. Yeah, I appreciate that well. But yeah, I've seen you comment on a lot of videos too. So hopefully you've got some good advice, hopefully, to help you on your own adventures there. But yeah, check those date codes, because that's something I used to never do before I got into this van thing. And you may be surprised at how old the tires are. And if you're buying a van, also, this gives you some negotiating power. If those new looking tires are 10 years old, maybe it's bought from the little old lady that just didn't drive it a lot, only took it to church on Sundays and to the supermarket once a month. But on vans, those things especially need to be replaced. So if you're dealing with older tires, that's a negotiating point. If you know right off the bat you're going to have to replace those tires. Small battery pack, jumper cables, that's good. I've carried battery packs. I haven't carried jumper cables. I don't have jumper cables in the minivan. I have jumped other people off with my jump pack. Yeah, on other people's vehicles. I've done that several times. I had a really bad experience jumping a vehicle off once, and I toasted the electronics. It was a foreign car, and this was 25 years ago. And I toasted the electronics pretty good jumping, helping jump a guy's truck off at work. And so I'm a little more scared. We didn't do anything wrong. We didn't have anything reversed. Everything was done like it was supposed to be, grounded to the frame and all that. And it still took out some electronics that cost me a fair amount of money to have put back. So I'm a little skittish over jumper cables. That's why I prefer the jumper packs. But if you have yourself, and this is one thing a lot of people don't realize, so let me put that out there. The jumper packs are great, but your battery has to have some life to it in order for that jumper pack to work. If you have left your headlights on for 16 hours and you have taken your battery all the way down to zero, that jump pack won't even recognize the battery. And in that case, you're going to need jumper cables and somebody else's vehicle in order to get you started. So the jumper packs are great for a weak battery, but if you kill that battery completely, there's none of them I know of that will work. Insisted that tires only took nitrogen. Yeah. The first minivan I bought, the guy I got it from happened to work at a tire place and had put new tires on it, and they were nitrogen filled. But you're not going to be able to get nitrogen here and there on the road. It's just, I think it was more of a gimmick than anything else for people to run around and sell the equipment to some of these garages. And if you're a tire shop, it sounds nice to a customer that, oh, we're doing these nitrogen filled tires. But even if your tires are filled with nitrogen, by the way, if you have a low tire, it's okay to fill it up with air. Doesn't hurt anything. So you don't have to only put nitrogen in a tire. It won't hurt anything at all. So if you have the little green caps that show that you have nitrogen, it's not an issue. Let's keep giving up on that. Bought a combo jumper pack with an air compressor. Yeah. Yeah, I had a buddy that didn't know a lot about things, and they didn't have his size tires, so they slapped him a set of tires on, brand new expensive tires, and that were a slightly different size, which of course threw his speedometer off by about 7 miles an hour. And while you can sometimes go with size differences in width, when you're going size differences in height, it's going to throw your speedometer and everything off. But yeah, the guy at the tire shop intentionally lied to my buddy. So good ones and bad ones out there. Any mechanic, any tire shop, good ones and bad ones. There you go. Regular air will mix with nitrogen. Biggest tip for a newbie going on our first road trip. There's a lot for people going on their first road trip, but the biggest one, I think, once we get off all these safety discussions of what you should carry with you and that stuff, go slow. Everyone goes too fast on their first trip. You know? And I have a friend just picked up an RV. This is the first time he's really done an RV. He's retired, and they're talking about going from Tennessee down through Georgia and into Louisiana to see somebody, and then they want to make it into Arizona and see the Grand Canyon, and they've got it in their head that they're going to do all this in about 12 days. Unless the only thing they want to do is see the interstate, that's what that trip is going to be for them. So when you start out, you want to see everything and you want to do everything. So that would be my biggest advice is slow your pace down. You know, don't spend more 4 hours a day on the road max. You know, preferably 2, which is about 100 miles a day average. And the other part that goes with that, quite honestly, if you have things kind of planned out, and this is why I don't do reservations. Flat out, I do not do reservations. This is why this state and national park campground reservation system is not for me, why I absolutely despise it. If you end up somewhere that you are really enjoying yourself, and if you're with other people and everybody is having a good time, and you're thinking, but we're supposed to be, there's this other thing going on 100 miles away, or this museum we wanted to stop at, or whatever, or we've got reservations now in this town, this campground 150 miles away, so we've got to go. Almost every time I and everyone I know has had that happen, they end up going to their next destination they were so excited about, and then they're all saying, man, we wish we had stayed where we were, because we were all having a good time there. Sometimes that next place you're going to will be a letdown. So if you're enjoying yourself, stay where you're at, do everything you want to do there. And I don't know when you jumped into this chat session, but the last trip I went on, 30-some days, I spent a lot of time in Oklahoma, a little bit in Kansas. I had planned on doing all of Route 66 in Missouri. I cut that off the trip. I have no regrets that I didn't get to spend that time in Missouri, because I spent more time in places I enjoyed that I happen to be, rather than rushing, trying to get to that next destination. Hopefully, at some point in my life, I will get to cross the Route 66 stuff in Missouri off of my bucket list. Maybe this year, maybe next year, whenever. But I'm good with it. I'm good with having missed it. So slow that pace down. Jay, in Ohio, right across the river from West Virginia. Is that the Huntington part or the Parkersburg-ish part? Dina, do I recommend an ice maker and a minivan? That's one of the things. As a matter of fact, I have a video coming up on that in the next couple of days, because the price of some of these things have come down pretty well. And anybody that's traveling a lot enough, I recommend that they eventually get into one of the 12-volt refrigerators. But the problem with that is now you're not buying a bag of ice every day, is you don't necessarily have ice. So the good part, the bad part is this. The ice maker is going to be about this big. They're all about the same size. And this takes up a fair amount of space. So go to your post office and ask them for an O-Box 7, which is one of these roughly 12 by 12 by 8 boxes, and put it together and stand it up on its end, because that's going to be the size one of these little portable ice makers is going to be. And see if you have room in your particular build to be able to put that somewhere. So I think they're great. I am considering it myself, because you can plug that thing in and it can make you, 8 or 9 ice cubes within about 5 minutes, which is enough just to throw in a drink. I'm not trying to sit there and make pounds of ice with it every day, but it would be nice to have. But I'm undecided about the space. Do I want to donate that much space to it? Jazzy. I've had other people mention that state park to me, and I really want to come back and do more of Utah, because I've only gotten to do the southern part, and I like Utah really well. Parkersburg, West Virginia area. Okay. Yeah, I've done that rail. I've done a lot of that rail trail on a bicycle between Parkersburg and Clarksburg, I guess it is. And I lived in West Virginia at one point as an adult for a few years, but I was in the southern part of the state, so I know from Charleston south much better than I know from Charleston north. But I'll tell you what, I'll leave Kathleen here in charge, if you will, there for a couple of minutes, and you guys can chat between yourselves. I need to reheat my drink here and make sure I don't lose my voice. So give me about 3 minutes. If anybody pops in here, let them know that I will be back in a couple of minutes, and we'll try to keep this going for a little while longer. Almost there. Let anybody coming in know I'll be back in 2 minutes. Okay. Look like we lost too many people. A little less light because plug the computer in. Let me know, do a quick sound check. Can you hear me okay? Okay, thank you. Yeah, Set Power seems to be a good brand. People have been having good luck out of those that I've run into on the road. So they're on my A list of brands now. Where's my favorite destination? Well, Richard, let's see. I got to think about that. There's just a lot of them. There's something great in every state I've been to. I mean, there's no place that I don't like. And when I'm on the road with smaller towns, I also sometimes I'm thinking about, could I settle here? Could I relocate here and be happy? And I have a couple of those towns I've found. One in Illinois, although I wouldn't like the winters there. A couple in Texas, a couple in Oklahoma, certainly. But I tend to be more about the smaller town stuff and museums and such, not that, I drove through Tulsa and Oklahoma City on this last trip because I had to kind of get to where I wanted to go. A lot of times I'll just bypass cities. But there were a couple of museums and things I wanted to see. But for the most part, I'm done with the tourist trap places. I got so burnt out on that years ago. And that's actually what this channel started out as. It was going to be a travel channel. The van part of this just happened. But the van is just my way of being able to travel longer and stay out longer. If I had to keep busting it to pay for $100 a night hotel every night and all the food and eating out and everything that goes with it when you're doing that stuff. So the van allows me to stay out much longer. I hate hotels anyway. I hate the hotel price game. I don't like staying in hotels. So, I would much rather be in the van. So it's worked out for me, and that's what this channel kind of morphed into, was trying to help other people with the van stuff. Oh, allergic to sagebrush. Okay. People can be allergic to anything. I have a really good friend that's allergic to cinnamon. I met someone once that was allergic to chocolate. So, people can have an allergy to anything. Traveling in a 2019 Expedition, would a minivan be better? If you're happy with what you've got, you're going to have about the same. If you've got an Expedition, you're going to have about the same space, lengthwise and widthwise. Your only difference is you're going to have a little more height in a minivan than you're going to have in the SUV. So in the SUV, you're going to have trouble sitting up in a bed, more so than if the way you may build your minivan. But the height is really going to be the only difference. So if you're happy with the Expedition, I'd say stick with it, or at least try it out, because whatever mattress and things that you throw in there, a little bed frame, whatever you do with your Expedition will, if you decide you need more space later, all minivans made the last 20 years have basically the same internal dimensions. So the stuff you try out in your expedition, it'll go right into a minivan if you choose to get a minivan. Allergic to mayonnaise. Okay. Are you allergic to eggs? Because I know eggs are in mayonnaise. Eggs and vinegar and... Thoughts of vans compared to cargo trailers. To each their own. And I don't want to tow anything. I will never tow anything behind my van. I will never tow any kind of little trailer behind my vans. I don't want to deal with that. That's not saying it's wrong for you or wrong for somebody else. We've all got to figure out what we want to do. But I just want to, my morning tear down and getting ready to leave involves me walking around the van, making sure I don't have a flat tire. And if I have a bicycle with me that I may have locked up outside during the night, to unlock it and throw it in the van. And I'm ready to go at that point. I do not enjoy the process that a lot of these people do, especially with RVs, travel trailers, fifth wheels, whatever they're using. You can carry a whole lot more stuff with you and set out all the tables and do all of this stuff. But man, I don't want to deal with that every day. I don't want to deal with awnings. Awnings can be a nightmare. If you have one of those awnings pulled out and you leave and the right gust of wind comes or the right storm comes up, tears that thing up, you're out $1,000. So again, it's just everybody's personal preference on. But for me, vans give me the best of all worlds, the best of what I want to do, best of what I want to deal with, which is just being able to go and making it easy for me to being able to stop. Because anything I see that looks interesting, I'm going to stop, and it may be something off the road in the middle of nowhere that I just want to veer off the road and jerk into it. And the larger vehicle you have, the harder that is to do. Vaughn says he's allergic to lettuce. He's not laughing at you. I mean, it's amazing. Almost everybody's allergic to something. Laughing at Jay. Yeah, Kathleen doesn't want to deal with the trailer when she's traveling. Yeah, so it's everybody's, some people are more than happy with the monster size thing and pulling monster size things. It's just not for me. Trying to scroll up through some of these real quick that I missed there when I was having my 5-minute break. Yeah, I have a daughter that knows much about horses, has done horses, has competed with horses when she was younger. She has horses now. I know nothing about horses. I know very little. Oh, let's put it that way. As a matter of fact, I was with her once, hadn't seen her horse out in a year. There was 5 or 6 animals in a field, And she looks at me and she says, "Do you even know which one's mine?" And I said, "Of course I do, baby. It's that one, this color and this color." And she looks at me with an extreme look of disappointment and says, "Dad, that's a donkey." So, I have trouble telling a donkey or a mule from a horse. So that's my horrible, bad joke story for the night. 6 people will leave now. Okay. We just had a light failure for some reason. Let me fix this and I'll be right back. There, that's better. Maybe not. Let me play with this a second. Figure out what's going on with this. We'll solve this problem. Okay. How about now? Yeah, the light should have had nothing to do with the sound. right. Give me a yes if you can hear me now. We got sound back. Okay. I've jammed up my Let's try this one more time. Okay, how about now? Do we still have sound? Give me a yes if you can hear me. Give me a no if you can't hear me. Okay. Okay. All right. Sound again, so we're good. Is a metal bed frame going to be the new setup? Yeah. I wanted to go. Of course, that was really the only thing I built for the first van I had was the bed frame, just because I didn't know any better and I needed to do it for one or two people, and I threw it together, and I mean it worked. I mean it worked on several trips for about 3 years, but for the minivan, it's going to be just me and the bicycle on trips. So I really wanted to try this bed frame, and I'm impressed with it. So that's, for me, it's going to work fine. Traveling hotel, yeah, that's kind of the way I look at it too. Because I could do a video, I could talk for the next hour on reasons I hate hotels, because I had jobs that I used to be on the road a lot, and from time to time and for months at a time, I would be in hotels 5 nights a week or whatever. But even when traveling for enjoyment, hotels sucked a lot of that enjoyment out of it for me. So that's not to say I won't occasionally spend a night in a hotel if it's to my benefit, but I just almost rather not. You know, what frame are you talking about? There was, if you click on videos, probably the last 1 or 2 videos I did was this no build bed frame. It folds up, you take it out of the box, holds 750 pounds. You throw your mattress or sleeping bag or whatever you're going to use, mattress pad, right on top of it. You're good to go. So you don't need to build a bed for your van. They're not very expensive. You can put it together. I mean, the only putting together is moving a couple of parts, and there's a couple of wing nuts that you put on. It's 1 minute, and the other advantage is it weighs so little you can easily take it out, which I couldn't do with my other frame because it was a little bit heavier. And I started thinking about this bed frame and mattress is light enough. If I go somewhere during the day that I'm under a shade tree, or I go to near a beach, or I'm on the side of a river or something, I can just set this whole thing out and be able to lay there on it and enjoy it. So it has some advantages. Oh, Vaughn, don't tell me you lost sound again. Somebody tell me you can hear me. Bed frame at which it was shorter. Yeah, the shortest is going to be 75 inches, I think. You can get 80-inch ones. Okay. But I think 75 is the shortest, but that works out because most of the mattresses you buy are 75 inches. If you understand the difference between a donkey, a mule, and a horse, yeah. In my defense, it was 50 yards away, but I was trying to pick based on color, not on anything else. So, Rob, stop ignoring me. Yeah. What's the safest form of payment while on the road? All right. Your state parks and things will usually take checks. I don't like doing that. I also don't like carrying very much cash with me. I'm not a big cash person. So, but you need a little bit because you will run into places that are cash only. But my preference is using a credit card. One, because I have a record of what I'm doing and where I've been, and it's just convenient. And I can make a few cents back on a credit card. So if that was your question, yeah, I prefer using some type of credit card. Yeah. Gonna be hard to spend crypto on the road in those little towns of 163 people. So you're going to need cash. You're going to need a credit card or a debit card. There you go. Tim there had a good suggestion. Different types of bills, yeah. And that's the other thing too. You do need what I do though. I tend to have a fair amount of ones, and because campgrounds, when you go to campgrounds, they don't make change. So if you go to the state park and it's $21 and all you have is 25, you're going to give them a $4 tip. Where did I get that bed frame from, and was it the heavy duty version? Give me 30 seconds here. Let me try something. I wanted to try this anyway. I had so many tabs open I couldn't find my window. Find the right tab. All right, let me put a link in there. That will take you to these bed frames. Yeah, they're heavy duty. The small ones hold 750 pounds, and if you have the two-piece one to make like a full size or a queen size bed, then it's 1,500 pounds. And I'm telling you, man, sitting on these, it surprised me. And if you go look at the video, I had a buddy there when we took it out, and he got on it, and it's like, yeah, this thing doesn't have any give to it. I mean, you can bounce across it. It has no weak points from one end to the other. So it was better than I expected it to be. I knew a lot of people that had gotten them. But one thing to be careful of, and this is one of the things that happens on Amazon too, whatever you look at, because they just want to sell you something, and they don't care what. They just want you to buy something. Nothing wrong with that. But they will offer you inferior stuff sometimes. Same thing happens if you go to Walmart or a lot of these big sites now. They'll offer you cheaper stuff, inferior stuff, or they have some house brand, which is usually an inferior brand. So you may save a couple of bucks on it, but you're probably going to get a lesser quality product. So if you're going to do one of these bed frames, stick with this brand because we know they work. I know it works. You know, some of the others here that are chiming in that have these, you know, they know they work and do what they're supposed to. And I don't know why my sound is going in and out some tonight. Let me just pull that microphone out. Hopefully it may not sound quite as good quality wise, but maybe that'll solve the sound issue. You know, I know people that have gotten these little Coleman cots and things, and if you're a weekender and doing this for a couple of days, that's fine. And there's probably people out there that have done it for a month and they're happy with it. I just can't imagine being happy for more than a day or two on one of these. So little cots or these little futons with a 1-inch mattress or something, your sleep means a lot. You know, and if you've ever been in the situation where, and I'm sure all of us have, at home because of work or because of something going on, sick relatives or whatever it is, where you have 3 or 4 nights in a row that you don't get very good sleep, you're not going to be a happy camper or a happy anything. So my number one most important thing to have in a van, whether it's a minivan or full-size van or whatever, is a good, comfortable bed. And I've had a few people, you know, that's gotten in or sit on it or laid down on it or whatever that have made the comment, oh, this is more comfortable than my mattress at home. And as a matter of fact, I think it's more comfortable than my mattress at home here at home base. So just that 4-inch trifold mattress is good quality stuff. Yeah, see, Tim there just said the same thing. Yeah, I sleep very well when I'm on the road. Sleep is for the weak. I think Torrance is a little bit younger than some of us, you know, because when I was a tad younger, my motto was "I'll sleep when I'm dead." So, but as we gain a few years, it's like, yeah, sleep does become a little more important than definitely in our 20s and maybe in our 30s. In my roaring 20s, there you go. Yeah. In my 20s, I could go days at a time without sleep. You know, I could throw a sleeping bag down on a concrete floor if I had to. Somewhere, you know. I went a year and a half once that I literally slept every other night. And I took a nap on the nights in between because I was working working this weird job and these weird shifts, and I went home every other day, and I did that for a solid year and a half. And I don't think I could do that now. I certainly wouldn't want to relive that, even though or working that many hours anymore. Yeah, it's all sleep if I stop. Yeah. Tim's got 6-inch memory phone. Time to kind of overkill. Yeah. Yeah. The 4-inch has been good for me. There's nothing wrong with going bigger, and I really don't know how that affects whether a 6-inch is going to be more firm or more soft. But yeah, 4-inch, 6-inch, you aren't going to go wrong with it. I've tried like a 10-inch or 12-inch, in stores that are sold for people in houses, at home base. And I think the one I have is just as comfortable as any of those expensive 10 or 12-inch ones I've ever laid down on. All the tent and some weatherproof, bug-free. Yeah. Yeah, just having anything for shelter, anything metal around you, a van around you for shelter. My kids showed me a video. I'll link this in something later if I can find this and pull this up again. But somebody had a dash cam going in the vehicle in front of them. I can't remember if it was a minivan or an SUV, but they had boxes and stuff hanging off of it, so you could tell they were vacationing. And it was somewhere in the Midwest in the last couple of days. And this thing took a direct lightning strike. And I mean, lightning hit it like 4 times in a row. It was vicious. So that's a reminder that, yeah, I'd rather be in a van than I would necessarily hoofing it, even though I will occasionally spend a night in a tent, but then it's by choice. I have kids. Yeah, amazingly enough. And they are grown now, doing their thing. First camping trip, Pigeon Forge, and my bed broke. Bear walked next to the car and stole the neighbor's chocolate cake. Yeah. And let me tell you something, down there in that area, Sevierville, Pigeon Forge, Gatlinburg, about once a year, bears will end up getting in people's cars. And I mean, we're talking not with the windows down, but somebody will leave a door unlocked and they will end up getting the door open and climbing in somebody's car and, then trying to figure out how to get out and just tearing the heck out of it. So they're a little bit curious sometimes. It's not always about going after food. It's just sometimes they're curious. If people screaming, stay in your car. Yeah. E-bike versus bike with a 2-stroke added. Thoughts? I took an e-bike out west with me on a trip. A friend let me borrow it. It had been, somebody built it for him just to see if they could do it out of, they bought the parts off eBay and, shipped in here from China and put their own motor and their own battery pack and, their own little charger and stuff with it. And it worked fine for me. I have not bought an e-bike yet. I don't know that I will, but I prefer to take a bicycle of some type with me, and it makes it more enjoyable. I mean, it really does. It adds some weight. So instead of a 30-pound, full size, instead of a 30-pound mountain bike, now you've got a 50-pound e-bike. But just to not have to exert more effort than you want to sometimes going up hills or whatever. And you can still turn that completely off when you're going purely for exercise, and you want to work out and you want to sweat, then you can do it. But when you want to lay back a little bit and enjoy it a little more, then you can let it assist you, or almost use it like a moped or something, and they have a pretty decent range, probably 30 miles or something on average. So there's some advantages to e-bikes. The disadvantage is the extra weight. But I enjoyed it quite a bit. And they're virtually quiet. I mean, you get a little whine kind of from the electric motor, but it's not like a moped or a motorcycle or anything. So yeah, they're very quiet. Rather have a foldable bike with gears. Yeah. So to each their own. It's just whatever you enjoy. Add aftermarket motor and battery on a folding bike. Yeah. Yeah, it's doable. I've never done it. I have a full size folding bike that I bought on the first long car trip I did before I got into the vans. That's why I bought a folding bicycle. So it's essentially a 26-inch fold in half mountain bike, and it's hard to get it apart and back together. The little ones probably are easier. It takes some effort, but it was nice to have, but just because I prefer a full size bike. But on the last trips I took it on, I didn't even bother to. Now that I have the van, I don't even bother having to fold it up anymore. I just leave it like it is. Really want your bike on a bike? Yeah, yeah. That's kind of true, I think. I mean, I have a friend that, in his early 60s decided just to see if he could do it. It was kind of his retirement thing. Hitting age 62, and he got on a bicycle, kind of at the Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee state lines, and he went basically to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and camped on the side of the road a few days and, rode a bicycle. Not an e-bike, a bicycle all the way there, just with what he was carrying with him. So I won't be doing that. I don't love it that much. But he did it, and to me that was quite an impressive accomplishment, regardless of age. But I don't like being on the road with bicycles. This is what, these politicians have tried to get this done and build these little bike lanes when they redo roads. These things are so dangerous here in the United States. There's just places I absolutely would not ride to be out with traffic. Whereas in Europe, you know, when they talk about bike lanes, it may be 12 miles between two towns, but it's nothing but a walking and bike path. You know, you're not out there with cars and you trying to be in a lane this wide and back and forth between traffic and stuff. That's what people tend to not, the politicians funding this stuff in the United States, they don't seem to understand that concept, so they keep wasting a lot of taxpayer money on something that people aren't going to use because it's just flat out dangerous. So I wish we had more good bike paths and trails and things than we do, but unfortunately we don't. Cheryl's building her own bed. That's cool. Yeah, beds can be simple. If you want to build your bed, I've got the video on my channel, that slide out build bed that I did that'll work for one person or two people. I mean, two of us went, you know, from Tennessee to California with it 2 or 3 years ago. And then we had several other trips that were a little bit shorter than that, but it worked. And if you go down the description of that video, I've got all of the materials there. I mean, you can build that thing. If you don't have power tools, even, you can put that thing together in an hour. All you would need is a little handsaw because, you know, this pine wood that you get is so soft. So yeah, even a handsaw would do it. Man, I didn't even look at the time. We've been at this for a while. I'm sitting here just listening to it rain in my area. I have the window open, so I'm listening to it rain while I'm doing this. Oh, great. I didn't know you did live videos. I haven't done a live video in probably 3 or 4 months. So I enjoy it because I enjoy getting to interact. You know, there's quite a few people here that I've gotten to do live videos with before, and it's, you know, it's nice to be able to check in, you know, kind of touch base, not on what you guys and gals are doing, also what kind of traveling you're doing, where you may be, the ones of you trying to get started, you know, how far along you are in your build and whatever. So, you know, that's the interesting part for me. Goes, Tim, take care of yourself. Yeah, with lumber prices right now, there is certainly more than what it costs when I put it together. I haven't added up the material cost for what it would be now, but you know, when you're in the $60 or $70 range for one of those little fold out heavy duty frames that I did that video on, yeah, it's probably going to work out about the same. So I just really wanted to try this build that I'm working on, build 2.0. I just wanted to do my best to do it no build, because that's the way so many other people are going to be doing it. Hard to find a minivan that hasn't been in a flood or up north. What state are you in, by the way? But yeah, unfortunately, flood stuff does happen with vehicles and they get resold. Came in late, so yeah, start over when you complete. Yeah. If you restart when this thing goes back up, just skip about the first 5 minutes, because that's, waiting for people to come in and saying hi to the first couple of people, and then we'll get into the good stuff. I think you'll enjoy, and just skip around and till we're talking about something that's of interest to you. Is live video a last minute decision? Always. Yeah. My advanced thing is about 15 minutes. So if you're a subscriber, you also want to have that notification, that bell notification thing turned on. And that way you'll get notification if I'm going live a few minutes before it starts. But yeah, I never know when I'm going to do this. I don't plan things out. I plan video topics out, but I don't sit there with a script. I do what I do. That's why there's mistakes in it sometimes. But hopefully it's the information I'm putting out is valuable to you guys and gals, especially with walking you around mistakes that I made when I started doing this. Because when I started doing this, there were people on YouTube doing videos and stuff, but it was basically, the people preaching how great all this was, and nobody talking about the things that went wrong or the problems you could actually run into on the road. It was like everybody trying to recruit everybody into van life or RV life, that it was going to be the thing that was going to solve everybody's problems. And, you would go on the road and life would be awesome, and it would be all relaxation and peace. So the reality, it can be, but you want to be comfortable, and you want to know how to deal with problems. You want to have a solution for problems before they happen, I guess is the best way to put it. So I know things can go. I appreciate that, Torrance. I have a solution for almost everything that can go wrong before it happens. And that's basically the best you can do. But it's like anything else in life. It's all about problem solving, and it's about putting things to your advantage a little bit. You want to put the odds in your favor. So that's why, of course, anybody going on more than a weekend camping trip, once you've done that a few times and you decide, hey, I want to do this, or want to do a little bit longer trip, that's why you need to pick up. You need to have a tire repair kit and know how to use it, and you want to have a battery pack and a few other things with you, just to take care of problems that can come up. So then it's a small problem instead of a big problem. Off grid, you talk about how I manage heat on hot days. I did a video a week or two ago. So if you click on videos and the recent ones, it should be right there. There's only so much you can do. Most of what I talked about was how to survive the days and the nights, just some suggestions, and then a few products that are going to help out, because you're going to need to move some air in a hot place to be able to sleep. But there's only so much you can do. When you're trying to, you're just not going to fight Mother Nature and win. But you can do things that will help you be more comfortable to ride it out if you happen to end up in one of those heat wave places. How's crime out there in the woods? Can we find out info on that? Perhaps calling the police department and asking. Well, that's a good question. I don't know if they'll tell you the truth. crime happens everywhere. You know, there's an odd video on my channel. I can't remember, it's this town in Arizona. And I think the title of the video is Don't Stop Here. And when I put that video up, I got some really bad comments from people. And then I started chatting with the people that give me the bad comments, and they started admitting, oh yeah, well, yeah, but this did happen and that happened. And, you know, because if it's on Route 66 and it's this little desolate town and there's some hotels there, and of course a lot of people stop and do those little hotels on Route 66, and the locals break into the cars at night while the people are in these little motels. And unfortunately, it's a problem, and it's happened a bunch of times. So there's not really a police department in that town to speak of, and you run into that in some places, especially in the West, that there's just not a police presence there. So you're going to be a little more on your own. But in general, I don't worry about it. I worry about it more when I'm in cities. I worry about break-ins to the vehicle more when I'm in cities than I just don't worry about it a lot in rural areas. But it does happen. It can happen. So, but it happens. It happens in people going and vacationing at Dollywood or vacationing in Gatlinburg. You know, they don't have a lot of crime, but there are some odd things that have happened. 3 or 4 years ago, there was a couple down there, and the lady got her purse stolen, and they end up back at their hotel that night, and they get up the next morning, and now their new truck is gone because the person that stole her purse figured out from the key card, didn't know what room they were in, but knew what hotel they were in. So they just went back with the car keys until they found the right new truck and then drove. It's not funny. It's really not. But then drove off with their new truck with all their stuff in it. So there's going to be crime everywhere. There's people that have RVs stolen on the road. But it's not a big issue as long as you understand it can happen. And just use your judgment. If you're ever in a place that you don't feel safe, trust your instincts and leave. Move on. Go somewhere that you feel safer. Off-Grid Adventure. Just found my channel this week. X31. Info is valuable. Thank you for that. That's the whole point of me trying to do this. Certain amount of disinformation out there that you have to know who to trust. Yeah. There's a few. It's going to be like that. There's a few people out there, and I'm not going to call anyone out, but through friends, through that I've made on the road, different things that have met some of these people, there's a few people out there pretending to do van life or RV life full time that aren't. I've never tried to do that. Obviously, I'm at home base here tonight, but you know, I've taken longer and longer and longer trips, and as I've worked towards that. And will I ever be full time? I don't know. It may happen. But I'm working more toward that being an option. And would I enjoy that? I think I would, at least for a year or two. I don't know that I would do it forever, but it could happen. But there are probably a few people out there milking things for all it's worth that I'm sure are way more successful to me. So more power to them. Yeah, Isabel. Yeah, a few new people coming in here now. So welcome to everyone that's popped in here in the last few minutes. If you have a question about van life or your van build or whatever, and you've just come in here in the last little bit, feel free to post it over there in chat, and they'll help answer your question, and I'll try to talk about it and answer your question and do whatever I can to help you. Appreciate that. Somebody asked a question. I may have got off topic a little bit as far as safety, and I've hit on a couple of things, but I'm going to do something more specific for women, I think. But I think you need to have something with you for protection, regardless. And it's not a big issue. I've never had this happen. Most of the people I know that do this have never had it happen. But the fact is, if you're in a vehicle all night long and you're somewhere other than a state park or surrounded by other campers, there is always a chance of someone trying to get in your vehicle. So, you need something to scare them away. You need some way to defend yourself, and I'll leave it at that. The Appalachian Trail that runs from Georgia all the way up into the Northeast, there are millions of people that walk some or all of that every year. But there's the occasional murder on that trail, and this sadly happened about 2 years ago. And the guy that got killed that was in a tent, a couple of the people with him got away. He was able to restrain the nut that come up there. But the guy that got killed had just come back from like his second tour of Afghanistan in the military, and then gets killed by some person with mental issues out on a hiking trail. But again, it's not something I'm going to lose a lot of sleep over, and I don't think anybody else should either. Just, always be aware of your surroundings and be kind of prepared, As long as you realize that it can happen and you're a little bit prepared and you have something to defend yourself with, whether it's a can of bear spray or whatever. I know some people are going to choose more extreme things. That's certainly your right. But yeah, then you're fine. Crossing state lines, yeah, that can be a problem, because technically you should have, stuff locked in the. It's going to be different from state to state, and you need to know what the rules are, and that goes beyond my things that I want to worry about. I was in the military. I can do all this stuff. I have things with me that I'm confident I can defend myself with, or defend someone else with if it comes up, and I'll leave it at that. And one reason why is you can't take those things if you go across the border. You can't take those things into Canada, and you can't take those things into Mexico. So, and I have done both in my travels. And if I get anywhere near any of those borders, and the borders are open, thanks to the last year, I'm going to definitely be bouncing into those other two countries and in and out of those two countries when I'm traveling. So if you have those things with you, that becomes a problem now, because you don't want to get silly and try to take things in and get caught. You can end up, you don't want to end up in a Mexican jail because you thought you were an American and you could do what you wanted to do. They don't play that game. And if you're going north, there's places you can stop that will, shops and things that sometimes depending on where you're crossing over, that will keep your weapon for you, your thing for you. But then again, you've got to be coming back out in the same direction in order to pick it up. So if you're going to go into a country and you're going to come out 600 miles later somewhere else, that doesn't do you a lot of good anyway. So I think there's other things you can carry. But for those of you that want to approach it that way, that is certainly your right. Solar powered lights, motion detector, 120 decibel alarm. Yeah, that's certainly possible. If you can, noise will scare people away a lot of times. I have like I've shown in videos before, the cheap solar lights just with Velcro, because Velcro a lot of times won't stick well to stuff. Velcro sticks to glass very well. So a little piece of Velcro on the glass, and I stick one of those lights on each corner of the van or all four sides of the van. If anything walks up in the middle of the night, it's going to set that light off. And the second thing is, if I need to get out of the van for some reason, you know, the minivan, you've got the sliding door on each side. That's where I put those. They're not sensitive, so as I move around in the van, they never go off. But if I start to open that door, when I grab that door latch and the door opens an inch, that light is on. So I can see what's out there before I get out. Does Mexican prison serve tacos? I kind of doubt it. I doubt that they're as well treated as we tend to do here in America with our people in jail. So I don't have personal experience with that in Mexico, and hopefully I never will. Where you decide to sleep is going to be 80% of your security. Yeah, I think that's a good point. I'd agree with that. Yeah, a few new people snuck in here. Ray Pilot and Jill. Yeah, I would not want to go to jail, be jailed in a foreign country. I like it. I enjoy them. I have friends that are, you know, we go out to ranges and things. You know, I enjoy the heck out of it. But again, my style of travel doesn't lend well to doing that, because again, I don't plan these things out, and when I end up places, you know, I want to be able to bounce over the border into another country with no problem. So held once in Saudi Arabia. Okay. Was that at an airport or was that somewhere? That would be bad enough, but what branch of the military? I should have gone in the Air Force, but I didn't. That's a story in and of itself. So I was an Army guy. But I would advise anyone young to go in the Air Force over the other branches. Wow, Jill, that's that. Yeah, you certainly got a story to tell. Cheryl was Army many moons ago. Yeah, few moons back for me also. But yes, if you're young, go in the Air Force. Trust me on this. Go Air Force. Many, many, many more opportunities in the Air Force. There you go. And when you get out of the Air Force. Make that exact light with an alarm built into it and a remote control. What? $20. Yeah. So that's certainly something. That's certainly an option. Yeah, I have one side of my family that's pretty. That just about everyone was in the military at some point. That's not why I did it, but I mean, these were people that were the real deal people. World War I, World War II, Korea. Vaughn, 30 years in law enforcement. My hat's off to you, man. Chose the Air Force because they were going to draft you for the Army. There you go. Yeah, I wasn't old enough to have to deal with draft stuff. But yeah, if I had to do over, and I was this close to being Air Force, and I may tell that story someday. I just don't know that I'll tell it tonight. So you may want to. That's why you want to come into future live chats, because I may let that story go. That's a good story on how I ended up in one over the other. Well, since we're at the 2.5 hour mark, and anybody that watches this on replay probably won't stay for the whole 2.5 hours, and sometimes I don't put these even back up for replay. But since some of you have been in here quite a while, I'm going to give in and I'm going to tell this story to the best I can. Are you ready for a story? Say yes if you're ready for a story. I know Torrance is ready for a story. Okay, here we go. As a young man, I went into the military with some friends, and we kind of went in on that buddy system thing. And I had changed my mind and decided that I was going to go Air Force instead of Army, which upset my friends, definitely upset the recruiter, the Army recruiter, because now he wasn't going to get credit for me. And the day we're actually doing this and you're doing your real enlistment and paperwork and stuff, this is, of course, I'm a little bit older. This is going back a few years. So this is the early days of things being computerized, and the computer system went down at the MEPS Center. A MEPS Center is, the entrance place that handles all of this stuff. So it took a few hours to get this back up, and it was late in the day by this point. We had been there all day, and everyone is mad at me, and we are several hours away from where our vehicles are, and this recruiter is going to be our ride back to our vehicles. And as celebration, my buddies and I had gotten tickets to go to a rock concert that night. So my decision basically became, you redo your paperwork for the Air Force, you miss the concert. Or your paperwork for the Army is already done, and all you have to do is walk through that door, swear in, and we can all leave and go to the concert. So, being a very, very young man, I made this life-changing decision based on having tickets to a rock concert, and I walked through the side door and was sworn into the Army by some pregnant lady, and off to the concert we went. So that's how I ended up not in the Air Force, because had it not been for that, I would have gone in the Air Force. But as you know, you don't always make the most brilliant decision when you are 18 or 19 years old or whatever it was. And this will give away my age for someone Torrance's age. The band was RATT, R-A-T-T. So yes, I made Queensryche was the opening act, and we actually missed Queensryche because of me holding up. So we got there right when just a couple minutes before the main act started, which was RATT. And it really wasn't that good of a show. Unfortunately, their singer, this was the 80s, and he was one of these guys that had a few too many before he came out, and he mumbled a lot, and I forgot half the words, and yeah, it was kind of a disappointment. As a matter of fact, it was one of the worst shows I ever saw. So, because I used to go to a lot of concerts, so yeah, they didn't appreciate the sacrifice I made in order to go see them live. Torrance, never heard of them. Yeah, you'll have to look that up on YouTube after we're done here. RATT. Yeah, like X31 there said round and round, but you'll find a bunch of stuff from them. They went to my college and spoke to all of us. Jill, pregnant soldier. Yeah, I was sworn in by a pregnant lady. Yeah, a few years later than 83, but you're getting close. It was the 80s. Yeah, getting closer. You're still a couple of years off, but yeah. LA 80s rock, yeah. God, I hate this hair band term though, man. I really do. I think they all hate it too, because I don't know who said that. That was something that came up about 20 years ago that just caught on, calling all these things hair bands and lumping everybody into that. But Yeah, at the risk of offending some people, if you want to talk about music for a second, I have nothing for Kurt Cobain at all. Nothing. The other two in that band, yeah, I think they're pretty cool. I will say that the two things that I heard that ever got my attention music wise, that really got my attention, was Welcome to the Jungle by Guns N' Roses, and the other one was Teen Spirit by, of course, Nirvana. And it was just something about the tone of those two songs. And each time, the first time I saw that, and most other people did or heard that, it was was on MTV, and when MTV mattered, and I happened to be around in places where there were a lot of people both times, and people, it's like everybody stopped what they were doing because it's like everybody was hearing something they hadn't quite heard before. So those two songs made a big impression tone wise for a lot of people, but I wasn't a Nirvana fan, but I like the little bass line for "Come As You Are," but other than that, I don't think I have much for it. Only favor the unplugged Nirvana. Yeah. I didn't get into the grunge stuff as much. It's just too dark. It was just too whatever. I mean, I remember everybody was crazy about Pearl Jam, and I remember going and buying the Pearl Jam 10 CD, and it's like, to the people that love it, more power to them. But just didn't do it for me. I didn't have any reason to be miserable and hate everything. I prefer music about girls and cars and happiness. So we're not going to take it twisted, sister. I like stuff off that album, that the stuff on that album, the Stay Hungry album, that wasn't radio songs, is pretty dark if you've never listened to Twisted Sister, and I like it a lot. I like that album a lot, but it's dark, man. It's not, and those videos that they did made them look. There were people, no doubt, that actually 14-year-old kids that actually went to those shows that had no idea what they were getting ready to hear and see, based on those fun little MTV videos at the time. And I think that happened with a lot of bands. Alice Cooper, when the song Poison came out there and hit so big in 87 or 88, you had all these girls and stuff going to an Alice Cooper show that was the only thing they'd heard. They had no idea what they were in for. They had no idea the experience they were about to have. But it was all good fun. Air guitar and air drums. There you go. Yeah, Foo Fighters I'm into. I never was that. Weezer has a couple of songs I think are okay, but that's a great thing about music. It's different things for different people. I mean, I like some really old country sometimes, but very much into Motown stuff. The song "I Ran." Saw them at Radio City, all fun. Yeah.
Yeah, Corey Hart was one of those people that was here and gone, man. Because I really liked Corey Hart when he hit. I don't know why, but there was several people that way, but they didn't get the right push, or I don't know what happened, but right push from the whoever their label was. Well, music in general can listen to anything besides hard metal. Yeah, I don't like speed metal. It's like when you hit stuff like Metallica and Judas Priest, it's got to have some. It's got to have a melody to it. I don't like just speed metal kind of stuff. Everything except all. Yeah, ABBA. Corey Hart, Sunglasses at Night. Yeah. And Never Surrender. That was the other big song of his. Corey Hart, really big in Canada. Yeah. And I liked a lot of Canadian bands and people too. I was a really big, and still am, I was a really big Triumph fan. Triumph was a really great rock, and they're just a rock and roll band, but you know, they get lumped into that hair metal thing with everybody else. You know, there's a lot of stuff that got lumped into that just wasn't metal. You know, they were just rock bands. Yeah, Triumph is awesome. Yeah. They just never got the big hit, the one that really took them in on the A level down here for some reason. It's a band from San Francisco, I guess is where they're from. Y&T. That's another band, just great bands, put out great stuff over the years, but they had a few hits, but they never hit that one that really launched them onto the A list. Speed metal sounds like your barking dog. Yeah. I play with all the songs. Yeah. I like 2 or 3 of their songs. They're not. I like a lot of 70s stuff. I like a lot of 60s stuff. I'm all over the place. I'm not a big Beatles fan. There's the early songs are cute, and the later stuff, you know, there's a couple songs I like, but I was just never a big Beatles fan. Elvis, I burned out on early Elvis long ago. I like 70s fat depressed Elvis. And those songs out of those movies in the 60s, I just think are garbage. So Striper had a few hits were big there. Their, I guess, singer is doing some solo stuff now. I know he was even around down here where I live a couple years ago. Has a solo gig going, different kinds of music, and still doing some of the Striper stuff. So Billy Joel. I could tell you another boring story. Would you like to hear another boring story? One more boring story before we turn this off. I was reading the comment about Janis Joplin there. Yeah, Janis Joplin's a one song person to me. But again, to each their own. There's people that don't like things I absolutely love. Oh, and I was fans of some bands that just never made it. Jeff Rhea out of the 80s. There was a band that hit around 90, kind of hit at the end of what everybody calls hair metal now. You can look some of this stuff up on YouTube, type in Baton Rouge and put the word band with it. Baton Rouge was a great band, and they just never made it for whatever reason. So I like some obscure stuff too. Only the Good Die Young, one of my favorite Billy Joel songs. Let me hit this one van question, and then I'll try to get into my story before I forget it. What kind of tools should I always carry on my car trips? Carry a tire repair kit that you can pick up for $6 or $7, $10, whatever, from Walmart or wherever. The one thing and I didn't know that, I found this out the hard way about 6 months ago with mine. And luckily I had a friend next to me that had one. With those tire repair puncture kits, those little strips need to be kind of wet and they can dry out after you have them for a year or two. And if they are dried out, they will not work or won't work well. So when you get that tire repair kit and, those things are kind of the actual plugs, take those things and put them in a little sealed baggie to make sure they stay moist and flexible. So that's one thing you definitely want to have. I would have some type of, to go with that, I would have some type of tire inflator, $25 or $30 tire inflator or run off a cigarette lighter, because you're going to need that once you fix your tire. And the other thing would be a little battery jump pack. Jumper cables are fine, but I would have a little jumper pack. And I go over some of this stuff in videos. If you go back through some of the old videos on the channel, why you need them and how to use them in more detail. But, you can't always count on there's going to be somebody around if you end up with a weak battery, depending on how far off you're going off the beaten path. Or even, you could be in a state park, but that state park may be 15 miles from a town. There may not be rangers and things around, or a ranger station may be 6 or 7 miles away. You probably won't have a cell phone signal. And during the week, you may be the only camper in that campground. Or there may only be one other person. Or everybody pulls out and leaves at 8 a.m. and it may be 7 o'clock at night before the next person comes in there. So if you're counting on somebody to help you on these little things, there may not be anybody to help you. So those are the things for somebody starting out I definitely recommend. Glance through these last couple of comments. All right, my last story, and then we're out of here. Are you ready? Billy Joel, God love him. That's what made me think of this when you made the Billy Joel comment. The album Glass Houses. I love that album. That was a great album. And I can name you all the songs off that album in order right now. And one of the reasons why is because I had that album a really long time. Because as a kid, you could go to the library and you could check out albums. And that happened to be one that they had. So I went to the library and I checked out a couple of albums, and that was one of them. And we lived a good ways away from town, and you check stuff out for like 2 weeks, and then they would let you renew it. If you didn't get back, you could just call the library at that time, and they would renew it for another couple of weeks. Well, I did that 3 or 4 or 5 times, and I had these albums for a couple of months, and I kept intending on taking them back, and that never happened. It kept getting put off, and I wasn't old enough to drive yet or anything. And at some point, those albums and the couple of books I checked out, I just stopped calling to renew for another 2 weeks. Summer came and I kind of forgot about it and busy doing other things in the summer, and that turned into fall. And then I came home from school, and there was a policeman standing in my yard, and my father was not very pleased. And then we took the stuff back to the library, and the fines that I had were pretty ungodly. So let's say I could easily have bought those couple of albums and the couple of books. My fines far exceeded the price of those things. So I paid and paid dearly for them and didn't even get to keep them. Of course, I had to give them back and then go work and make the money to pay off the big fines. So that's yet another one of my stories from my misspent youth. Yeah, the library sent, they hadn't heard from me for months by that point. They let it rack up for like another 6 months or something. And I guess they did it all at one. They probably did it all at one time, everybody that hadn't returned stuff. And yeah, so they sent the cops. And I was young. I was only like 12, maybe 13 years old. So it worked. They got their stuff back, and I had to pay the fine off in chunks, $5 here, $10 there. But I don't remember what the grand total ended up being, but it was pretty bad. It was more than the stuff would have cost just to go buy it, because a record album at that time was about $7 or $8, and books, a hardcover book was probably $7 or $8. So don't remember the exact amount, but it was I don't know, $60 or $70, and I probably could have bought the stuff, all of it, for $30. I remember working a lot of odd jobs in order to get the money to pay the fines off. I do remember that. Because this was back in the days when minimum wage was like $3 an hour. So Rick Astley, hey, he had a couple catchy songs, man. He was hot there for about a year in the late 80s. Yeah, I'm a rebel. Jay Burke, Poison was all party. Jay, are you talking about Poison the band? Rush probably the most celebrated band from Canada. Yeah, I would say so. And they're so big with the college crowd in the United States, all over the country, and always were. Even though they only ever had a couple of songs on the radio, at least in the United States. And Tom Sawyer, I guess, being the biggest one, and that really wasn't my thing. But yeah, they were always huge among college age people. And so was REM. That was another band way before they hit the real mainstream there in the late 80s, early 90s. They were big on college towns. Yeah, my book album, Little Thief. Yeah. I'm not good with details sometimes. And apparently that goes back to my childhood. You know, when I need to have a to-do list written down. Because if I have to do the same thing over and over, I will just eventually quit doing it. And I think that's what that goes back to. Never going to give you up. Yeah, people make fun of that now. It's something happened. I don't know, because I have friends showing me this a few years back. Something happened online, and if you go look up like the Rick Astley videos on YouTube, they've got like an unbelievable amount of views. Now, it just become kind of this thing to make fun of. So I guess everybody went and checked it out, and there's more views for Rick Astley videos than almost anything else that you will find. Hootie and the Blowfish. Yeah, that first album of theirs was really good. Yeah. Enjoy the 4th, everyone. Yeah, that's good. Everyone be safe this weekend. Don't be speeding anywhere, because the cops will be there in force, looking to make a few extra dollars. Yeah. Oh man, we're closing in on 3 hours. I think we may call it a night for this one, and I never know when we're going to get time to do this, but hopefully we'll do it again soon. So I get the replay up for this tonight or tomorrow. Come back in there and put some comments of other questions or something you might want to talk about next time. But everybody have a good night. Take care. Have some new videos up soon.